Hi, my name is David Von Thenen, and I'm going to be presenting a demo that's going to appear in the VMware SIG session at KubeCon EU 2019. What we're going to do in this demo is we're going to deploy a stateful application using both the vSphere Cloud Controller Manager, so the vSphere CCM, and then the vSphere CSI Driver. And in my environment here, I have two vCenter servers with 3 data centers among them. If we take a look at the first vCenter server here, I have a data center called VIC DC. And if they're already pre-tagged with region and zone tags. So if we look over here in the corner, we have this data center is tagged with region EU, and then region EU all is the zone. If we look at the second vCenter server, and we go to VIC 0 DC, so this is the first data center within our configuration on this vCenter server. It's already got tags with region US and then zone US West. And then our second data center within this vCenter server is VIC 1 DC, and it's got tags of region US and then zone of US East. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and deploy the vSphere Cloud Controller Manager. And that's really simply done by going to the vSphere CCM repo, and then just basically downloading the YAML that's available in the manifest folder. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and apply that YAML. And then we're just going to make sure that the Cloud Controller Manager is up and running. And we can see it right here. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to deploy the vSphere CSI driver. And what you can do is you can just basically download the YAML that exists in the vSphere CSI repo. And then even in the CCM case, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to update the secrets YAML to include your vCenter creds, and then also the CSI config to update stuff like the data centers and what other miscellaneous configuration you need for specific to your vCenter server. So we're going to do that right now is deploy the vSphere CSI driver. And we want to also just make sure, verify that all the CSI components were deployed correctly. So we can do that by doing simple kubectl get pods all namespaces. And we can see that the provisioner, all the nodes, the node stateful set is working fine. It deployed every node. We've got the controller and attacher node, and we're all good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a storage class and a persistent volume claim. And because we have 3 data centers in 2 vCenter servers, we need to provision storage out of a specific data store, or in this case, in our case, it's going to be a data store cluster. So what we want to do is we want to provision a volume in our second vCenter server within VIC DC1. And we want to create, if we go to the storage view, in that data center, we have a storage cluster called a iSCSI1 cluster, and we want to provision our storage class from this data store cluster. So when we deploy a pod with a persistent workload, we attach that VMDK that's going to get provisioned out of this data store cluster. So if we take a look at our storage class, pretty typical. It's a storage class, right? A vSphere FCD is what we're calling it. We want to provision it from a data store cluster called iSCSI1 cluster. And because we have 3 different data centers, we need to apply topology on top of that in order to give a hint to the CSI driver where we want to create this VMDK from, so this first class disk from. And in this case, we're going to do it at a region US East right here. So you can see right here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to apply our storage class and our PVC. And those are created successfully. Next thing we want to do is we want to deploy a stateful application. So a pod that's going to have a VMDK that's going to make use of the persistent volume claim and storage class that we just deployed. And in our case here, we have a simple pod called my CSI app, and then we have just using the BusyBox image, and we're going to mount that VMDK to the /data folder, and you can see that it has the name of my FCD volume. And because, just like in the previous storage class case, because we need to have this pod land in a specific data center or specific region and zone within our configuration, we need to target the US region and then the US East zone so that it matches up with where our storage class provision that VMDK from. And then if we notice here, the volume's my FCD volume and our persistent volume class. And if we actually just go ahead and look at the storage class or the persistent volume claim one more time, we notice that it's a 5 gig disk that we're going to create and attach to this pod. So let's go ahead and deploy the pod. And if we take a look at get all pods, make this a little bigger. And we can see that the my CSI app, the container, is getting created. And we can see that it's now running. And so now if we do a simple describe on my CSI app, we can see that the volume's attached and that it was mounted to, my FCD volume is mounted to data. And then if we go ahead and find out where the volume was provisioned, we should see that it's right here. It's on K8's worker node 9. And so if we go back to our vCenter server, we'll see that, yes, K8's worker 9 is in the US East region. And so if we go to that node and we do an edit on that virtual machine, we should see a 5 gig disk attached to this node, which represents the VMDK that's attached to our pod. And there we go. There we have it. A simple pod stateful application using the CCM in order to determine placement for where this workload should land within our configuration. And then we're using CSI to provision a first class disk or a VMDK to attach to our pod to make this a stateful application. And that goes for our demo. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'm in Slack, I'm in Twitter, I'm on GitHub. My username on all three is dvonthanen. Thanks a lot, appreciate it.